What if serving coffee with a smile while wearing $30 shoes made you the laughingstock of the wealthiest man in America, but that humiliation was exactly what you needed to change everything? When Delia poured refills for the smirking billionaire mocking her worn footwear, she had no idea her next customer would recognize her from 20 years ago, or that her secret bank statement contained enough zeros to buy his entire company 10 times over. Sometimes the most powerful revenge comes without a single word. The morning sun filtered through grease-stained windows as Delia Williams glided between packed tables at Sunrise Diner, balancing 3 plates on one arm and a coffee pot in her free hand with the precision of a surgeon. Steam billowed from the kitchen, carrying scents of bacon and pancake batter through the cramped space where regulars hunched over chipped mugs and sticky laminate. Her feet throbbed inside the $30 shoes she'd purchased 2 years ago, now splitting at the seams despite her careful gluing and mending each night after her shifts. She discreetly adjusted the right one under a table as she refilled cups with practiced efficiency, her smile never faltering despite having worked 14 hours yesterday and another 12 ahead today. The elderly couple in booth 6 brightened as she approached, Mr. Harmon reaching for her hand with paper-thin fingers while his wife asked about her grandson with genuine interest. Delia described little Jamal losing his first tooth with animated gestures that made them chuckle, carefully omitting the midnight asthma attack that had kept her awake measuring each laboured breath until dawn. Her uniform pocket held the pharmacy receipt with its impossible number, the insurance denial letter folded beside it like a death sentence she refused to accept. Between tables 4 and 7 she mentally recalculated her budget, eliminating her own lunches for the next month and cancelling the internet service Jamal needed for school, still coming up $80 short for the medication. The diner manager watched her with suspicious eyes as she slipped an extra slice of toast to old Mr. Bentley, who came in 3 times weekly to make his social security check stretch as far as possible, sharing an unspoken understanding of poverty that required no acknowledgement beyond a grateful nod. In the bathroom during her 4-minute break she splashed water on her face, studying lines etched prematurely around eyes that had witnessed too much hardship since her daughter died, leaving her to raise Jamal alone at 53. The mirror reflected determination rather than defeat as she straightened her collar and pinched colour into pale cheeks. She returned to the floor as 2 businesswomen snapped impatiently for service, her steps measured despite stabbing pain from developing bunions, voice pleasant as she detailed the specials memorized before dawn. Regulars watched her with admiring eyes, recognizing dignity that transcended circumstances, resilience in each efficient movement as she transformed minimum wage plus tips into survival through sheer force of will. During a rare lull, she calculated tips collected so far, silently promising Jamal they would somehow make it through another month without selling the last pieces of jewelry her mother had left behind, heritage she guarded for his future even as their present crumbled around them. Sunrise Diner hummed with morning conversations as Delia reset tables with mechanical precision, a solitary figure maintaining grace under pressure that would have broken someone with less fortitude, someone who had not learned that survival itself was an act of defiance against a system designed for her failure. Friends, before we go further, may I ask a small favour? Please subscribe to our channel. It truly helps us keep bringing you these stories, and reaching 1,000 subscribers soon is so important for us to continue. We also love hearing from you. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see how our little storytelling circle is spreading across the world. And if you enjoyed the beginning, give this video a like, and let's share thoughts on the whole story together below. The peaceful rhythm of Sunrise Diner shattered at precisely 10:17 when the glass door burst open, and Maxwell Stone strode in surrounded by 6 identically suited men whose collective cologne overpowered even the griddle aromas. Conversation stuttered into silence as the technology billionaire claimed the largest booth with a proprietary air, his cold blue eyes surveying the establishment like a displeased health inspector, while his Italian leather shoes gleamed against the scuffed linoleum. His voice carried deliberately across the diner as he complained about the table being sticky, the menu being laminated, the lighting being too yellow, each criticism delivered with performative disgust, while his associates nodded in perfect synchronization. Delia approached with professional calm, notepad ready as Stone interrupted her greeting to demand their premium coffee selection, his sneer deepening when she explained they served just one house blend. The temperature was too hot, then too cold, the mugs were chipped, the creamer was not organic, each grievance punctuated by tapping his $14,000 watch as if his time were being deliberately wasted by her incompetence. Other customers watched with uncomfortable expressions as Stone photographed the ordinary coffee mug with his platinum smartphone, dictating a caption about roughing it with the common folk to one of his assistants. The disaster unfolded when Delia, returning with their complicated order, pivoted to avoid a small child and accidentally brushed against Stone's extended foot, leaving the faintest smudge on his hand-stitched Italian loafers. Coffee sloshed but did not spill as she stabilized the tray with veteran skill. Her immediate apology cut short by Stone's theatrical gasp of outrage. His focus shifted predatorily to her feet, his expression transforming from anger to malicious delight as he pointed his phone downward, camera clicking rapidly while he described her shoes in excruciating detail for his social media stream. The fraying thread, the superglue repairs, the worn-down heels became subjects of hilarity as he invited his associates to compare their collective footwear value against her $30 Walmart specials. Stone calculated aloud how many hours she would need to work to afford shoes like his, then revised the figure upward, assuming she had responsibilities beyond fashion, his voice carrying deliberately to neighboring tables. Color burned across her cheekbones as she stood motionless, trapped between professional obligation and human dignity while he pointed out a hole near her pinky toe to his audience of millions. Several regular customers looked away in second-hand embarrassment, while others glared ineffectually at Stone, whose net worth exceeded the combined lifetime earnings of everyone else present. Delia maintained her composure with heroic effort as Stone directed his followers to vote on whether her shoes or the diner coffee represented the greater American tragedy, her hand steady as she served their food with undiminished courtesy that highlighted the grotesque contrast between her grace and his cruelty, between her poverty and his excess, between her humanity and his hollow power. Laughter erupted from the corner booth at regular intervals as Maxwell Stone continued his digital dissection of Delia, each notification ping on his phone triggering fresh waves of mockery among his entourage as the online audience responded to her humiliation. She moved through the diner with mechanical precision, her spine rigid as a steel rod while fire burned beneath her skin. The weight of 23 years of service industry indignities compressed into this single crystallized moment of cruelty. Her lips remained curved in the professional smile that had become as much a part of her uniform as her faded name tag, refusing to give Stone the satisfaction of a reaction that would only fuel his entertainment. The coffee pot trembled almost imperceptibly in her grip as she approached table 14 for a refill, her knuckles white against the glass, when she noticed the elderly man sitting alone in the farthest corner booth watching her with unusual intensity. His weathered face carried decades of experience in its creases, but it was his eyes that caught her attention, clear and knowing as they met hers with quiet understanding rather than pity. Something unspoken passed between them in that brief connection, a current of recognition that steadied her trembling hands and cooled the burning humiliation in her chest. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly, before returning to his newspaper, but the simple acknowledgement of her humanity in that gesture was like oxygen after too long underwater. The diner walls seemed to contract as fresh laughter burst from Stone, the ceiling pressing down as she collected plates from a vacated table, each breath becoming more difficult as his voice carried comments about minimum wage fashion statements and service industry chic. She deposited dirty dishes in the kitchen and murmured a bathroom break to her manager, walking with measured steps until the staff restroom door closed behind her, finally alone in the fluorescent harshness that highlighted every line of exhaustion in her reflection. Her hands fumbled inside her purse, pushing aside tip money and grocery lists until her fingers found the worn photograph with its creased corners and fading colours. Her mother standing proudly in front of a building Delia had never been able to identify, wearing an expression of quiet triumph that had sustained Delia through countless moments when surrender seemed the only logical option. She pressed the photo to her lips, drawing strength from the familiar ritual, before carefully returning it to its protective sleeve, splashing cold water on her face and reapplying the professional mask required to finish her shift. Taking 3 deep measured breaths, she straightened her shoulders and reclaimed the dignity no billionaire could purchase or destroy, reminding herself that Jamal was watching how she navigated this world of casual cruelties and impossible odds, her example more valuable than any inheritance she could leave him, except perhaps her stubborn refusal to be diminished by those who mistook wealth for worth. Grey sheets of rain cascaded across the cracked asphalt as Delia hunched beneath the inadequate shelter of her dollar store umbrella, The day shift finally complete but offering no relief as wet coldness at day seeped through her shoes and into her bones. The parking lot lights created hazy halos in the downpour as she fumbled with keys to her 1996 Honda with its perpetually leaking windshield, calculating whether she had enough gas to retrieve Jamal from her neighbour before the monthly bus pass arrived tomorrow. The voice behind her almost vanished beneath rainfall until it spoke to her name a second time, causing her to turn defensively. Pepper spray gripped inside her pocket until she recognised the elderly man from the corner booth standing respectfully at a distance beneath a large black umbrella. Water trickled down her neck as he introduced himself as Marcus Brentwood, the name triggering no recognition until he mentioned her mother Eloise Williams with such familiar affection that Delia felt the peculiar vertigo of having a stranger possess knowledge of someone she had lost too young. Rain drummed against their umbrellas, creating a private cocoon of sound as Marcus explained her mother had worked for his family business 3 decades earlier. Not as the cleaning woman Delia had always believed, but as an accounting assistant whose brilliant financial insights had saved his company during the recession of 1991. Confusion furrowed her brow as this version of her mother materialized, so different from the exhausted woman who had raised her between multiple jobs, never mentioning financial expertise or corporate connections. Marcus described ledgers balanced with uncanny precision, investment opportunities identified with remarkable foresight, and tax strategies that bordered on wizardry, his weathered face animated with admiration that seemed to punch holes in everything Delia thought she knew about her family history. Water pooled around their feet as he produced a business card embossed with gold lettering and an address in the downtown financial district, requesting she visit his office tomorrow regarding certain inheritance matters that could only be discussed in appropriate surroundings. The card felt impossibly heavy in her rain-damp fingers as questions multiplied faster than she could articulate them, her practical mind struggling to integrate this new reality where her mother possessed hidden dimensions and secret skills, where wealthy men waited decades to deliver mysterious messages about inheritance to daughters serving coffee in failing diners. Security lights flickered overhead as Marcus mentioned specific dates and accomplishments that aligned too perfectly with gaps in her childhood memories to be fabrication. His gentle insistence that her presence tomorrow was essential carrying weight beyond mere courtesy. The old Honda started reluctantly as Delia watched his luxury sedan glide from the parking lot, raindrops streaking her windshield like tears while she examined the elegant business card under the dashboard light, her ordinary world suddenly tilting on its axis, revealing mysterious depths beneath the surface of her carefully constructed understanding, like the parking lot puddles reflecting fractured versions of reality that simultaneously existed alongside what she had always believed was the complete picture. The gleaming glass tower reflected morning sunlight across the financial district as Delia stepped from the bus doubles onto sidewalks she rarely had reason to travel, her discount store dress feeling increasingly inadequate with each step toward the marble lobby, where security guards assessed her with subtle disapproval. The elevator ascended 48 floors with stomach-dropping speed, delivering her to a reception area where leather furniture cost more than her annual salary and fresh flowers perfumed air that tasted of privilege and power. Marcus greeted her with grandfatherly warmth that softened the clinical opulence surrounding them, leading her past oil paintings and crystal awards to an office overlooking the entire city, her diner invisible from this height where even clouds seemed within reach. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a world she served but never participated in. As Marcus gestured toward a leather chair positioned beside a mahogany desk where documents lay arranged with ceremonial precision, her name visible on papers too official to bode anything but trouble. Her palms dampened as Marcus began unfolding a narrative that transformed her understanding of everything, describing her mother not as the struggling single parent of memory, but as a financial savant whose analytical mind had identified market patterns others needed computers to calculate. Photographs materialized showing her mother in business attire beside Marcus at corporate events, evidence of a parallel life that had remained perfectly concealed from a daughter who had believed they could never afford new shoes. The revelations accumulated like snowfall, each disclosure burying her previous understanding deeper, as Marcus explained how her mother had leveraged her accounting position to make personal investments so prescient they bordered on prophetic small positions in technology companies before their exponential growth, property acquisitions before neighborhood revitalizations, commodity trades before market shifts. Disbelief transformed to vertigo as Marcus slid forward banking documents bearing official Swiss insignias and columns of numbers that required multiple readings to comprehend. Her mother having accumulated wealth across 3 decades through brilliant stealth, while living in subsidized housing and working multiple jobs to maintain appearances for reasons Marcus claimed not to fully understand. The account statement reflected a balance of $300 million, a sum so vast it transcended meaning for someone who calculated success in quarters and dimes accumulated in tip jars, who measured security and having enough gas to last until payday. Her fingers trembled against paper that legally transferred this fortune to her name through mechanisms established by her mother before her death, mechanisms that had waited for her 40th birthday to activate, sending notification to Marcus as executor. Beyond the windows lay a city suddenly transformed from battlefield to opportunity as perspectives shifted like kaleidoscope pieces falling into new patterns. Her existence instantaneously bifurcated into before and after this moment when everything simultaneously made perfect sense and no sense at all. When her daily struggles against poverty revealed themselves as unnecessary battles against an imaginary enemy. When her entire understanding of her origins and possibilities underwent nuclear transformation. Sleep evaded Delia as she paced the worn carpet of her apartment between midnight and dawn, the silence broken only by occasional sirens and the rhythmic breathing of Jamal asleep in the bedroom they shared, in this 500-square-foot space that suddenly felt like a theatrical set rather than her actual life. Bank documents later spread across the kitchen table beside her work schedule for tomorrow. Marcus having expressed bafflement when she insisted on maintaining her shifts at Sunrise Diner, despite having access to more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes. Her existence had split into parallel realities that refused to integrate. Her body still waking automatically at 4:30 for early shift preparations, while her mind reeled through incomprehensible numbers and possibilities that felt like fantasy, despite the official documents bearing her name. The laptop she had purchased secondhand for Jamal glowed in the darkness as she researched Max Tech Industries, the technology conglomerate Stone had built through acquisitions and ruthless market tactics. Articles describing worker exploitation in overseas factories flowing into reports of algorithmic wage theft from gig economy contractors controlled by his applications. Financial journals praised his business acumen, while former employees detailed punishing work conditions and psychological manipulation tactics that maximize productivity while minimizing humanity. His social media mockery of service workers merely the public face of contempt that permeated his entire corporate structure. Jamal stirred briefly in his sleep as she clicked through evidence of Stone systematically destroying small businesses that refused acquisition offers, targeting family companies with predatory pricing until desperation forced acceptance of terms that stripped generations of work from founders, while enriching only Stone and his shareholders. Her fingers traced the water stain on their ceiling that the landlord had ignored for 3 years as she contemplated bank balances sufficient to purchase this entire apartment building. Her identity suddenly fluid between the waitress who counted pennies and the heiress who could remake worlds with a signature. The refrigerator hummed with mechanical determination beside a kitchen table, where she had helped Jamal with homework every night while ignoring hunger pangs to ensure he had enough food. The familiar surroundings, suddenly foreign as she recognized each item as evidence of unnecessary struggle, each repair and compromise representing sacrifices her mother had allowed, despite having resources to eliminate them completely. Beyond revenge against Stone lay questions of responsibility that expanded with each revelation about his business practices and victims. Her mother having accumulated wealth while living modestly, but never using it to address injustices she surely witnessed, passing both fortune and moral dilemma to a daughter who had spent decades developing principles within poverty that wealth might either enhance or corrupt. Morning sunlight glinted off Maxwell Stone's diamond cufflinks as he swept into Sunrise Diner for the second time that week, now accompanied by 8 immaculate investors whose collective net worth exceeded the annual GDP of several small nations. Conversations faltered as Stone positioned his companions strategically around the largest table, producing a professional camera and tripod from a leather case, while announcing loudly that they were about to capture content for his viral series, America's Saddest Workers. Delia approached with menus clutched against her chest like armor, her face carefully composed despite recognition flickering in Stone's cold eyes as he adjusted the camera angle to capture her worn uniform and scuffed shoes instructing his companions to ask unnecessarily complicated questions about menu ingredients to highlight her perceived intellectual limitations. The diner transformed into a stage where Stone performed cruelty for his audience, explaining to his investors between vicious whispers how engagement metrics spiked when content featured authentic human desperation. His focus on Delia so complete he failed to notice Marcus sliding quietly into the corner booth with his own discreet phone positioned to record the unfolding spectacle. Stone interrupted Delia mid-sentence to comment on a loose thread in her sleeve, suggesting his followers start a charity for her wardrobe, while his investors laughed with practiced enthusiasm, their eyes betraying occasional discomfort at participating in such naked cruelty towards someone bringing them breakfast. Delia maintained professional composure as Stone directed questions about her education, her financial situation, her inability to advance beyond serving coffee. Each response she offered edited mid-delivery to twist her dignity into something he could frame as pathetic for his millions of followers. Her hands trembled almost imperceptibly as she poured coffee for the table, her eyes briefly meeting Marcus across the room in a silent communication that steadied her despite Stone describing her weathered appearance as a cautionary tale about life choices to his digital audience. Between performative mockery, Stone explained his upcoming service industry automation platform that would eliminate jobs like hers entirely, describing waitstaff as technological redundancies while she stood beside him holding the coffee pot that represented her livelihood, her expression revealing nothing while her knuckles whitened around the handle. Throughout the excruciating 30-minute performance, Marcus documented each casual cruelty, each deliberate humiliation, occasionally nodding encouragement when Delia glanced his direction during moments when her professional mask threatened to crack under the sustained assault on her humanity. Stone instructed his investors to leave exact change without tips as a final educational moment for his viewers, explaining that incentivizing mediocrity perpetuated dead-end employment, while Delia cleared their dishes with mechanical efficiency, unaware that Marcus had transferred $1 million into her new account during the meal, his quiet fury matching her controlled dignity as they separately watched Stone depart with his entourage, leaving behind crumbs, coffee rings, and digital evidence of character flaws that would ultimately prove more expensive than either could currently imagine. Rain pelted the windshield of Marcus's Bentley parked overlooking the city skyline, its leather interior cocooning them in hushed luxury that felt worlds removed from the fluorescent harshness of Sunrise Diner, where Delia had completed her shift just 30 minutes earlier. Financial newspapers spread across her lap revealed what mainstream media had yet to report: Max Tech Industries facing a coordinated hostile takeover attempt from 3 competing firms that could succeed if Stone failed to secure an additional $400 million in capitalization within 2 weeks. Her fingers traced the headline announcing Stone would unveil revolutionary service industry automation at an exclusive investor gala next Friday, promising technology that would eliminate 3 million jobs nationwide while doubling profit margins for corporate clients. Lightning flashed across the skyline, illuminating Marcus's weathered face as Delia articulated her evolving vision. No longer content with passive wealth, but determined to transform her inheritance into a mechanism for justice that transcended personal revenge against Stone into something systemic and lasting. Rain drummed hypnotically as Marcus adjusted his position, confession etched into every line of his expression as he revealed that his involvement stemmed from more than friendly concern for her mother, explaining how Stone had systematically destroyed his son Thomas 5 years earlier through fabricated sexual harassment allegations, when the brilliant young programmer refused to sell his accessibility software patent to Max Tech. Shadows played across the dashboard as Marcus described watching helplessly, while Stone deployed teams of lawyers and public relations experts to transform his son from rising technology star to unemployable pariah, culminating in Thomas's suicide attempt that left him permanently brain damaged and institutionalized in a facility that consumed most of Marcus's remaining fortune. Tears mingled with raindrops reflected on the window as Delia realized her mother must have known this history, must have calculated this potential alliance in her methodical planning, positioning her daughter and Marcus as instruments of justice, with complementary wounds and resources. The city lights blurred beyond the glass as they transitioned from strangers connected by coincidence to partners united by purpose, Marcus revealing his meticulously gathered evidence of Stone's criminal business practices that lacked only sufficient capital to deploy strategically. Windshield wipers created rhythmic punctuation as Delia processed the layers of connection between her mother, Marcus, and Stone, pieces of a complex puzzle assembling into clear purpose as she formally proposed combining her financial resources with Marcus's business intelligence to not merely punish Stone but transform his predatory company into something that healed the damage he had caused. Their reflection captured in the rearview mirror showed two unlikely conspirators from different worlds finding common cause in justice rather than vengeance, their shared understanding crystallizing into something more powerful than either could achieve alone as they began formulating a plan that would permanently alter the landscape Stone believed he controlled. Their quiet conversation in a parked car setting in motion consequences that would ripple through boardrooms and beyond. Sleep abandoned Delia completely as investigation consumed her nights, laptop glow illuminating her determined expression, while Jamal slumbered peacefully in the next room, unaware that his grandmother had left them enough money to purchase the entire apartment building. Financial reports and corporate disclosures gave way to social media archives where Stone had documented years of mockery targeting service workers across the country, each post accumulating millions of views and thousands of cruel comments that followed his subjects long after he had moved to new victims. Images of struggling cashiers, delivery drivers, and housekeepers filled her screen, their faces captured in moments of exhaustion or stress, then transformed into viral entertainment for audiences who viewed their poverty as character failure rather than systematic inequality. The pattern emerged with sickening clarity, Stone selecting predominantly women of color working multiple jobs, their dignity assaulted for engagement metrics that translated directly to advertising revenue, and speaking opportunities where he presented himself as an authority on workforce optimization, her stomach clenched discovering Rebecca Torres, a single mother waitressing in Phoenix whose minor spelling error on a receipt became Stone's content for an entire week, internet strangers identifying her workplace and flooding it with complaints until she lost her job, her children, and ultimately her life, the suicide note specifically naming Stone as the man who destroyed everything she had worked to build. Dawn light crept through blinds as Delia uncovered 17 similar cases, ranging from career destruction to complete psychological breakdown, each victim discarded once engagement metrics declined, fresh targets acquired with predatory regularity that revealed pattern rather than coincidence. Business publications celebrated Stone announcing revolutionary service automation technology, promising to eliminate human inefficiency from customer interactions, investors salivating over projected profit margins while ignoring 3 million workers whose livelihoods would vanish, predominantly women supporting families without alternative income sources. Press releases detailed MaxTech partnerships with 6 national restaurant chains, 4 hotel conglomerates, and 3 retail giants to implement systems that would eliminate servers, housekeepers, and cashiers within 18 months. Stock prices climbing as markets celebrated workforce reduction, while financial analysts described displaced workers as acceptable collateral damage in technological evolution. Mourning birds began their chorus as Delia compiled evidence connecting Stone personally to each decision, each cruelty, each life casually destroyed through both his corporate initiatives and individual targeting, her inheritance transforming from unexpected windfall to sacred responsibility as she recognized her unique position at the intersection of wealth and first-hand knowledge of exactly how his actions impacted real humans with real families and real struggles. The apartment felt too small to contain the weight of what she now understood, her personal humiliation microscopic compared to the systematic destruction Stone orchestrated against an entire class of workers, her newfound resources carrying moral obligation that transcended revenge into responsibility for correcting injustice on a scale few individuals ever gained opportunity to address. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across the Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom, where 500 of the wealthiest individuals in the country gathered in celebration of themselves, champagne flowing as freely as the capital they controlled, while Maxwell Stone held court near the center, surrounded by admirers laughing too loudly at his jokes. Delia stood motionless at the entrance, unrecognizable in a Valentino gown that had cost more than she previously earned in 6 months. Her hair professionally styled, her makeup flawless, her transformation from waitress to financial equal so complete that 3 separate investment bankers had already offered their cards with suggestive smiles. Only her shoes remained unchanged, the worn $30 pairs deliberately chosen and partially concealed by her gown, a physical reminder anchoring her to reality, while the fantasy of wealth swirled around her in perfumed clouds and practiced laughter. Marcus guided her through the crowd with grandfatherly pride that disguised their business relationship, his hand occasionally squeezing hers reassuringly When the opulence threatened to overwhelm her senses, their shared secret creating conspiracy intimacy as they navigated toward the bar where Stone dominated conversations with characteristic volume. Financial terms flowed through discussions around them, leveraged positions and minority stakeholders and hostile acquisitions. Language that would have been foreign to her just weeks ago, but now represented weapons in an arsenal she had mastered with surprising speed. Her mother's genetic gift for numbers emerging, once permission to succeed had been granted. Stone gesticulated dramatically while describing his automation revolution to potential investors, his eyes sliding past Delia without recognition, seeing only another wealthy woman rather than the server he had humiliated. Her invisibility outside servile context proving how completely he saw uniforms rather than humans. Champagne bubbles tickled her nose as she sipped slowly, watching Stone perform confidence despite the financial precipice his company teetered upon, unaware that Marcus had orchestrated purchase of 18% of Max Tech stock through 7 separate shell corporations over the past 10 days, combined with her 22% acquired through Swiss banking proxies creating controlling interest that would be revealed at precisely the right moment. Conversation buzzed around her as investors discussed displacing service workers with casual cruelty, describing human beings as operational inefficiencies while servers wearing black and white uniforms circulated with trays of appetizers, invisible to the very people plotting their economic extinction. Her feet ached in the familiar shoes grounding her between dual realities as she navigated the glittering crowd with newly granted membership to their exclusive world, Marcus subtly pointing out key board members and significant shareholders who would factor into their strategy, her mind cataloguing names and faces with Waitress efficiency repurposed for corporate warfare, the invisible becoming visible, the powerless becoming powerful, the transformation accelerating with each step across marble floors that separated her past from her future. Morning sunlight sliced through vertical blinds in the Max Tech boardroom as 28 shareholders adjusted Italian suits and silk blouses around a mahogany table worth more than many families earned annually. Delia sat silently beside Marcus, introduced only as a representative of Helios Investments, her tailored business attire and confident posture giving no hint of her previous trembling hands balancing coffee pots. Her identity obscured behind designer glasses and a sophisticated chignon that transformed her appearance so completely that Stone nodded dismissively in her direction, without spark of recognition. Projection screens descended from recessed ceiling panels as Stone began his presentation with characteristic bombast, detailing quarterly projections and market dominance before transitioning to his automation initiative with evangelical fervor, promising technology that would eliminate human inefficiency from customer service interactions nationwide. The boardroom air thickened with anticipation as lights dimmed for his multimedia presentation, opening with statistics about service industry error rates illustrated through video compilations of worker mistakes, culminating in footage from Sunrise Diner featuring Delia herself struggling to balance trays during rush hour. Laughter rippled around the table as Stone narrated her movements with mocking commentary, highlighting her worn shoes with zoomed footage while describing service workers as evolutionary dead ends soon to be replaced by his superior technology. Her expression remained professionally neutral as her own face filled wall-sized screens, her past self moving through familiar motions while Stone dissected her efficiency metrics and calculated her economic value as less than his automated alternative, the cruelty casual and unremarkable to board members who viewed labor as expendable resource rather than human beings supporting families. Polite chuckles punctuated his jokes about employee elimination as profit enhancement, shareholders exchanging knowing glances about workforce reduction, while Delia methodically documented each participant, each laugh, each complicit nod that revealed character beneath expensive veneers. Stone gestured expansively while outlining implementation timelines that would eliminate 3 million jobs within 18 months. Revenue projections climbing as human salaries vanished from balance sheets. The excitement around the table palpable as wealth concentrated further in fewer hands through technology disguised as progress. The corporate catering staff silently refilled water glasses during his presentation, wearing uniforms uncomfortably similar to those in his mocking videos, their invisibility to the assembled power brokers reinforcing the disconnect between decisions made in boardrooms and lives shattered in subsequent waves. Marcus squeezed her hand beneath the table as Stone concluded with triumphant projections of shareholder returns, his presentation transitioning to approval votes for his automation initiative that would begin with targeting diners like Sunrise, his confidence absolute as he turned toward assembled board members completely unaware that the woman he had humiliated now controlled enough voting shares to single-handedly determine his corporate fate, his technological revolution, and his professional future. Sunlight crystallized into sharp focus as Delia rose smoothly to her feet, the boardroom falling into confused silence. While Stone continued his presentation momentum for 3 more words before registering the interruption, his sentence hanging unfinished in suddenly thickened air, she removed her designer glasses with deliberate calm, meeting his gaze directly as recognition flickered across his features, confusion transforming into disbelief when she introduced herself as both the waitress from his mockery videos and the controlling shareholder of Max Tech Industries through combined holdings with Marcus Brentwood Investments. Colour drained from Stone's face as she activated her tablet, financial documentation appearing on all screens, showing irrefutable proof of their 40% ownership achieved through 17 strategic acquisitions over the past 15 days. The mahogany table seemed to vibrate with tension as board members processed this revelation, their expressions cycling through confusion to calculation to fear as power visibly transferred across the polished surface like electricity finding new conductive paths. Stone attempted recovery through nervous laughter that died in his throat as Delia methodically displayed his social media history targeting service workers, split-screen analytics revealing how his cruelty directly correlated with Max Tech stock increases, engagement metrics translating to investor confidence built on human degradation. His interruptions grew increasingly desperate as she outlined 8 class action lawsuits being filed simultaneously in federal courts at that very moment, representing 127 victims of his targeted harassment, including families of 3 workers who had committed suicide following his viral campaigns. Sweat beaded visibly above his collar as Stone switched tactics to ingratiation, suggesting partnership possibilities and mutual growth opportunities while board members studied ceiling tiles and shuffled papers, professional survival instincts recognizing the sinking ship and calculating personal distance. The professional mask Delia had worn through thousands of customer interactions served her perfectly now as she continued without acknowledgement of his bargaining, detailing 4 years of Max Tech labor violations in overseas factories, algorithmic wage theft from the contract workers, and systematic discrimination against female engineers that would become public record by afternoon unless specific conditions were met. The corporate attorney began taking frantic notes as Stone abandoned dignity completely, offering her personal compensation, board positions, public apologies, his desperation inversely proportional to her composure as she stood in $30 shoes, now visible to everyone in the room, her calm voice describing herself as merely the first of many invisible workers stepping into visible power. Sunlight shifted across gleaming surfaces as she concluded by revealing her proposed reorganization of Max Tech, prioritizing ethical labor practices and technological development that enhanced rather than replaced human workers, her inheritance transformed into leverage that would redirect the resources of an entire corporation away from exploitation toward equitable opportunity. The perfect justice lying not in destroying Stone but in forcing him to witness his creation becoming something entirely opposite his vision while bearing his name in corporate history. News cameras documented the historic Max Tech board meeting where Delia unveiled sweeping corporate reforms with the calm authority of someone born to power rather than thrust into it by circumstance, establishing executive salary caps at 15 times the lowest paid worker while redirecting 40% of previous executive compensation toward employee benefits, including childcare subsidies, educational grants, and healthcare coverage extending to part-time staff. Financial analysts predicted corporate collapse as she mandated 30% profit allocation to community investment focusing on service industry training programs, their skepticism transforming to reluctant admiration when quarterly reports showed employee retention increasing 80%, while productivity metrics surpassed industry standards through workforce investment rather than exploitation. Public relations experts marveled at her strategic brilliance, requiring Stone to remain as figurehead CEO with radically diminished authority and compensation. His punishment not swift termination, but prolonged witness to his company evolving against his fundamental values, while legally bound to represent policies he privately despised. Morning commuters paused before electronic billboards displaying Stone in waitress uniform working, breakfast shift at Sunrise Diner, his court-mandated public service documented through livestream feeds that accumulated 27 million followers, tracking his journey from exploiter to service worker, with enthusiastic schadenfreude that transformed gradually to genuine interest in his evident struggle, adapting to physical demands and customer interactions he had previously mocked. Restaurant patrons formed lines around the block as Stone carried trays with trembling arms, unused to such labour. His designer shoes replaced with practical footwear, experiencing firsthand the aching feet, aching back, and aching spirit of maintaining professional courtesy despite customer rudeness. His education continuing through evening shifts when single mothers arrived after second jobs, their exhaustion visible as they calculated tips with the precision of those balancing impossible financial equations. Social media exploded with footage of Stone personally apologizing to waitress Rebecca Torres' sister. His prepared statement, abandoned as genuine emotion, overwhelmed him upon seeing photographs of the children orphaned through consequences of actions he had considered merely entertainment. The corporate automation initiative permanently shelved following his handwritten resignation letter, acknowledging fundamental flaws in technology attempting to replace human connection. National news covered his transformation with skeptical curiosity gradually evolving to reluctant recognition that something genuine emerged through his mandated empathy education. Psychological experts noting authentic personality shifts that typically required years of therapy, somehow accelerated through direct experiential immersion into lives previously deemed disposable. Delia supervised his redemption journeys with the same quiet dignity she had maintained while he humiliated her. Neither seeking revenge nor permitting shortcuts through his necessary education, her moral victory evident not through his destruction but through his reformation, her inheritance ultimately purchasing something more valuable than corporate control, more lasting than financial security, more transformative than revenge. Her mother's mysterious plan fulfilled not through punishment but through awakening conscience in someone previously dead to consequences of wealth without responsibility. Sunrise Diner glowed with renewed vitality 6 months later, its faded exterior replaced with warm terracotta and gleaming windows. The interior transformed with equipment that prioritized worker comfort alongside efficiency, while maintaining the authentic community atmosphere that had sustained neighborhood connections for 3 decades. Delia had purchased the building quietly, converting ownership into a worker cooperative where 15 employees, including the previous manager, held equal voting rights on operational decisions while sharing 30% of monthly profits. Their average income tripling within the first quarter as customer loyalty transformed to customer investment in ethical business practices. Morning regulars still occupied their preferred booths, now joined by business students from 3 universities who were studying the cooperative model that balanced financial sustainability with human dignity. Cameras occasionally documenting the transformation for case studies examining how service industry employment could provide living wages, healthcare benefits, and educational opportunities that created careers rather than merely jobs. The educational trust established alongside ownership provided full college scholarships for employees and their children. 4 staff members currently completing degrees in business administration, culinary arts, and education while maintaining flexible work schedules, their textbooks sometimes visible beneath the counter during slower periods. Maxwell Stone arrived each Thursday afternoon for the community meal service that fed seniors and struggling families without charge. His designer suits replaced with practical clothing as he served tables with newfound humility. His transformation from exploiter to advocate documented across media platforms where he once mocked the very people he now championed. Conference organizers competed for his keynote presentations where he methodically dismantled his previous beliefs about human value, market efficiency, and technological progress. His testimonial about working breakfast shift during rush hour while balancing personalized orders with zero margin for error becoming standard curriculum in business ethics programs nationwide. Corporate boards anxiously rejected his meeting requests, recognizing the existential threat his conversion posed to exploitation economics. His insider knowledge of shareholder manipulation techniques now deployed against former allies through investment strategies that prioritized worker conditions alongside profit margins. Wall Street analysts reluctantly acknowledged that Mac's tech stock had increased 26% since implementing Delia's reforms, employee retention reaching unprecedented levels through profit sharing and advancement opportunities, the company becoming reluctant industry standard for balancing technological innovation with human dignity. Rebecca Torres' sister had become regional manager overseeing service worker training programs, her children attending private school through scholarships bearing her sister's name. The family tragedy transformed into legacy that prevented similar exploitation through educational intervention. Delia still occasionally served coffee during morning rush wearing sensible shoes, purchased without financial constraint but chosen with earned wisdom. Her inheritance multiplied through strategic investment, while her original compassion remained constant, her transformation not from poverty to wealth but from invisibility to influence. Her power measured not through acquisition, but through elevation of others, the universal lesson embodied in both her journey and Stone's transformation, proving that true value had never resided in bank accounts or social status, but in recognition of fundamental human dignity, transcending economic circumstance. Morning sunlight streamed through spotless windows illuminating the transformed Sunrise Diner, where Delia poured coffee for Marcus, with the same graceful efficiency that had defined her service for 23 years, though her movements now carried ownership confidence rather than economic desperation. The Dignity Foundation headquarters occupied the renovated building next door, its mission supporting service workers nationwide through emergency assistance funds, legal advocacy against workplace harassment, and entrepreneurship grants helping employees become owners. Its operating budget of $70 million annually drawn from interest on her inheritance, while the principal remained untouched for future generations of workers requiring advocacy. Her apartment remained essentially unchanged despite access to unlimited housing options, though Jamal now attended private school where his asthma received proper medical attention. His weekend hours spent volunteering alongside grandmother at foundation events where formerly invisible workers learned to harness collective power against exploitation. The comfortable Italian leather shoes supporting her daily rounds represented her only consistent personal indulgence, their quality eliminating physical pain that had unnecessarily accompanied poverty, their practicality reflecting values unchanged by wealth. Marcus sipped coffee while spreading architectural plans across the table, outlining their next venture, transforming abandoned downtown buildings into worker-owned manufacturing facilities, specializing in ethical production of goods typically created through overseas exploitation, their combined financial leverage creating alternative economic models where dignity and profit coexisted without contradiction. Regular customers mingled with business consultants studying the cooperative model, elderly patrons receiving free meals alongside executives paying premium prices for identical service, the economic diversity creating community connections impossible in stratified spaces that segregated humanity according to wealth indicators. Students occupied corner booths studying cooperative business structures that maintained profitability while distributing benefits equitably, their textbooks highlighting Sunrise Diner alongside historical labor movements, demonstrating how individual action catalyzed systemic change when directed with strategic precision and moral clarity. Former waitress Kelly reviewed college applications during her break, her tuition fully covered through foundation scholarships, her career trajectory transforming from survival to opportunity through structural intervention rather than empty promises of meritocracy without resource equity. Morning light caught the subtle gold thread embroidered into napkins spelling out the foundation motto, "Dignity without hierarchy," the message expanding beyond physical walls into business schools, corporate boardrooms, and policy discussions previously controlled exclusively by wealth interests now infiltrated by a service worker, perspectives historically excluded from decisions directing their lives. Maxwell Stone visited monthly to serve meals and share experiences, his redemption narrative neither complete nor static, but evolving through continuous education, his previous cruelty transformed to advocacy through experiential knowledge no theoretical understanding could replicate. Delia scheduled quarterly visits to Thomas Brentwood at his care facility, reading him corporate reform reports while Marcus held his hand, their shared mission healing wounds inflicted through power unconstrained by consequence, their combined resources protecting future generations from similar exploitation. Sunrise Diner hummed with renewed purpose as morning regulars finished breakfast beneath subtle evidence of transformation, ordinary people accessing extraordinary possibility through systems designed for collective advancement rather than individual extraction, proof that wealth without compassion ultimately yielded to kindness sustained by dignity when invisible workers finally became seen.